working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Aliana Sebastian and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. On today's headlines.
Developments
Around 3,000 soldiers from the U.S. and Philippine armies kick off annual joint exercises in the Southeast Asian country. The leaders of the United States, Britain, and Australia met in San Diego with an expected announcement on nuclear submarines, a landmark step in military cooperation as concerns grow over a fast-rising China. Chiang Mai continues to suffer from unhealthy levels of air pollution as authorities try to find solutions. Chiang Mai yesterday was ranked the world's most polluted city for the second day in a row. And Oscars television ratings increased for the second year in a row as 18.7 million viewers tuned in. First in our news, around 3,000 soldiers from the U.S. and Philippine armies kick off annual joint exercises in the Southeast Asian country. The first phase of Salaknib, which means shield in a local language, is being held on the main island of Luzon from March 13 to April 4. It will include scenarios involving the defense of the Philippines territory from potential foreign aggressors. Let's take a look.
Developments in the region in the recent months have given the Philippine Army cause to shift its focus from internal security to territorial defense. This will mean decisive changes in our mindset, in our capabilities, and in our force structure. But more importantly, this has also given us the impetus to develop our alliances and our partnerships with like-minded nations. So once again, we gather our forces to forge even stronger synergy between our countries. Long-standing allies with shared history and a deep commitment to the ideals of freedom and democracy. Every edition of Salaknib, this army-to-army exercise that we have, has sought to boost the interoperability of our forces in every aspect of military operations. In the next few weeks, some 3,000 troops will take on a range of activities that reflect present-day scenarios and future possibilities. In learning together, we enhance the capabilities and capacities to work together within the ever-changing dynamics of global developments and Indo-Pacific concerns.
Of course, the scenarios would involve the defense of the Philippine archipelago.
From potential foreign?
From potential foreign aggressors. You know? So this will include, because this is an army-to-army exercise, we will focus on defense operations such as air defense and also our defense from the shorelines.
The U.S. and Philippines Army started hosting the training exercise in 2016. This year, SN23 will take place March 13 through April 4 and will enhance military readiness, strengthen relationships, and increase interoperability between the U.S. Army's 25th Infantry Division and our PA allies. Commander of 2IBCD, Colonel Graham White, says the Warrior Brigade and 25th Infantry Division are honored to have the opportunity to participate in Salaknib 23 alongside our Filipino allies. This year's exercise includes multiple small arms and maneuver live fire exercises or LFX, jungle training events, artillery and mortar LFX events, and several engineering and construction projects. The leader of the United States, Britain, and Australia meet Monday in San Diego with an expected announcement on nuclear submarines, a landmark step in military cooperation as concerns grow over fast-rising China. U.S. President Joe Biden, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will gather in the California Naval Hub to flesh out the new three-way security pact dubbed AUKUS, which the nations unveiled in September 2021. Let's take a look.
Today, we're announcing the steps to carry out our first project under AUKUS, developing Australia's conventionally armed nuclear-powered submarine capacity. And I want to be clear to everyone from the outset, right off the bat, so there's no confusion or misunderstanding in this critical point. These subs are powered, not nuclear armed subs. They're nuclear powered, not nuclear armed. Australia is a proud non-nuclear weapon state and is committed to stay that way. These boats will not have any nuclear weapons of any kind on them. AUKUS has one overriding objective: to enhance the stability of the Indo-Pacific amid rapidly shifting global dynamics. This first project is only beginning.
The scale, complexity and economic significance of this investment is akin to the creation of the Australian automotive industry in the post-World War II period. This investment will be a catalyst for innovation and research breakthroughs that will reverberate right throughout the Australian economy and across every state and territory.
For the first time ever, it will mean 3 fleets of submarines working together across both the Atlantic and Pacific, keeping our oceans free, open and prosperous for decades to come.
The key element of AUKUS was a U.S. agreement to export to Australia its prized technology of nuclear-powered submarines, previously shared only with Britain when it designed its undersea fleet in the 1960s. Australia has made clear that it will not pursue nuclear weapons, unlike its two allies. But nuclear-powered submarines would allow Australia in the coming decades to maintain an underwater presence for months on end, offering an advantage as China's military expands its reach. The United States views China as its most consequential challenge and is seeking to deter military action by Beijing, especially when it comes to Taiwan. U.S. officials say China wants its military to be ready to invade Taiwan, the self-ruled island that Beijing considered parts of its territory and has vowed to take one day by force if necessary by 2027. But Australia will not receive the first of its nuclear-powered submarines, Virginia-class vessels purchased from the United States, until the 2030s, meaning they would be too late to help head off Chinese military action before then. Ahead of the expected announcement for British-built submarines with U.S. parts, China warned that AUKUS risks setting off an arms race and accused the three countries of setting back nuclear non-proliferation efforts. The military chiefs of the Philippines and Australia renewed their commitment to upholding regional peace. This came following the phone call between Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, Chief of Staff General Andres C. Centino and Australian Chief of Defense Force General Angus Campbell on Monday. The phone call meeting marked solid military coordination between the Philippines and Australia as partners in keeping the peace and stability in the South Pacific region, AFP Public Affairs Office Chief Colonel Jory Baclor said in a statement Tuesday. Centino and Campbell's phone conversation came ahead of the announcement of the Australian government in collaboration with the United States and the United Kingdom of its transition to conventionally armed and nuclear-powered submarines. Centino, meanwhile, thanked Campbell for the Australian government's continued support and participation to the 30th edition of the Philippine-US exercise Balikatan, which opens on April 11. To the U.S. now, where President Biden was up early before the markets opened in the morning in a move to calm jitters around the world. Following a pair of bank collapses, President Biden declaring the banking system is safe, telling customers your deposits will be there when you need them. Let's listen in.
Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them. Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills.
Silicon Valley Bank, a key lender to startups across the United States since the 1980s, collapsed after a sudden run on deposits, prompting regulators to seize control Friday. On Sunday night, U.S. federal authorities stepped in to protect all depositors at SVB, and regulators took over a second troubled lender. In a joint statement on Sunday, the U.S. Federal Reserve, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or the FDIC, and the Treasury Department said SVB depositors would have access to all of their money starting Monday.
I'm going to ask Congress and the banking regulators to strengthen the rules for banks to make it less likely this kind of bank failure would happen again, and to protect American jobs and small businesses. This is an important point. No losses will be borne by the taxpayers. Let me repeat that. No losses will be borne by the taxpayers. Instead, the money will come from the fees that banks pay into the Deposit Insurance Fund. The management of these banks will be fired. If the bank is taken over by FDIC, the people running the bank should not work there anymore. Investors in the banks will not be protected. They knowingly took a risk, and when the risk didn't pay off, investors lose their money. That's how capitalism works.
They added the depositors in Signature Bank, a New York-based regional-sized lender with significant cryptocurrency exposure that was shuttered on Sunday after its stock price tanked, would also be made whole. The FED announced it would make extra funding available to banks to help them meet the needs of depositors, which would include withdrawals. Worries about developments in the United States due partly to the Silicon Valley Bank or SVB collapse resulted in the negative close of the local bourse's main index on Monday, but the peso gained against the US dollar. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index, or the PSEI, shed 0.69% or 45.43 points to 6,544.45 points. All shares followed with a drop of 0.61% or 21.56 points to 3,518.83 points. Meanwhile, the peso gained against the US dollar after closing the day at 54.93 from its 55.17 close last Friday. It opened the week at 55.05, way better than its 55.17 start in the previous session. In a commentary, Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, or the RCBC, Chief Economist Michael Ricafort traced the peso's improvement partly to the decline in U.S. equities, profit-taking in the U.S. dollar, and impact of the SVB failure. He said these factors are countered partly by the Japan Credit Rating Limited agency's decision to affirm its A-level investment grade credit rating with a stable outlook on the Philippines after studying the country's resilient macroeconomic fundamentals. He forecasts the peso to trade between 54.80 to 55 to a greenback on Tuesday. Asian markets sank Tuesday, with banks bearing the brunt of the selling on fears of contagion in the sector after the collapse of two regional U.S. lenders. The swift closure of Silicon Valley Bank on Friday, followed by Signature Bank days later, forced U.S. authorities to immediately pledge support for other lenders and depositors. The move by the Federal Reserve, Treasury Department, and Federal Deposit Insurance Corp provided some reassurance to investors, but shares in several U.S. banks were hammered on fears of a run by customers. The collapse of SVB, which specialized in venture capital financing largely in the tech sector, was largely the result of the Fed's sharp interest rate hikes aimed at culling inflation, which hit securities hard. Bloomberg News reported that about 465 billion US dollars had been wiped off the market value of global financial stocks in 3 days. Equity markets were well in the red in early Asian trade Tuesday, with Tokyo, Sydney, and Seoul almost 2% down, while Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore, and Taipei suffered hefty selling. In other news, Chiang Mai continues to suffer from unhealthy levels of air pollution as authorities try to find solutions. Chiang Mai yesterday was ranked the world's most polluted city for the second day in a row by the IQ Air in its latest global index. According to the Bangkok Post, Chiang Mai was reported to have an AQI of 212 in the morning and remained at the foot of its table with a reading of 180 in the afternoon or in the late afternoon, while its PM 2.5 level stood at 161.3 micrograms per cubic meter, high enough to cause health complaints even among those not considered to be in an at-risk group. Chiang Mai Governor Nirat Phongsittavorn said state agencies are deploying resources to fight the forest fires which have been raging for about a week, blanketing parts of the city with smoke. Meanwhile, Thai PBS reported that the government has temporarily closed several national parks and wildlife sanctuaries in north and western regions because of the fires, and it is expected that cloud seeding will be used from Saturday in some areas. Helicopters have dropped water on fires in Kanchanaburi in West Thailand, but with little success because of the dry weather conditions. Winds continue to blow smog into the city. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment said it is expected high dust levels again on Thursday in Bangkok, but that afterwards southern winds should help to clear particulate matter from the city's air. To Myanmar, where UN-appointed independent rights experts have urged social media companies to do more to resist the military junta's online campaign of terror. In an appeal to internet chat platforms to monitor content more carefully and allocate sufficient resources to do so, the rights experts warn that Telegram in particular had become a hotbed for pro-military activity. Tens of thousands of followers had been drawn to the junta's violent and misogynistic content, warned the rights experts, who noted that women were often accused of having sex with Muslim men or supporting the Muslim population. This is a common ultranationalist, discriminatory, and Islamophobic narrative in Myanmar, said the experts, who added that women are also targeted by so-called doxing, the act of publishing private information, including names and addresses, about individuals without their consent. Host Philippines captured 6 more gold medals in the junior division of the Kyorugi, or sparring discipline, in the 16th ASEAN Taekwondo Championships on Saturday. Aldrich Paul Merritt, men's finweight; Kurt Michael Curata, men's bantamweight; Ocean Domingo, men's lightweight; John Angelo Pascual, men's welterweight; Tatiana Mangin, women's featherweight; and Chloe Madison Chua, women's light middleweight, all prevailed, much to the delight of the cheering crowd at the Ayala Malls Manila Bay in Parañaque City. The Philippines also won 7 more silver medals courtesy of Rihanna Kagyowa, women's finweight; Rodito Sinugbohan Jr., men's flyweight; Ethan Jervy Chavez, men's bantamweight; Noel Victorio Macasaet, men's featherweight; Giancarlo Fernandez, men's middleweight; Justin Paul Atienza, men's light heavyweight; Arsha Rija Valenzuela, women's light heavyweight; and Bill Donton III for men's heavyweight. Oscars television ratings increased for the second year in a row as 18.7 million viewers tuned in to watch hit sci-fi Everything Everywhere All at Once dominate a well-reviewed ceremony. The record for an Oscars telecast remains the landmark 1998 entry, where an average of 55.3 million viewers watched Titanic win Best Picture. Despite the good growth, the show still only managed to rank as the second worst viewership and ratings performance in the history of the Oscars. Last year's show was touted as the most social Oscars telecast on record, according to ABC and the Academy, with 22.7 million total social interactions and spiking 139% over last year's broadcast, 9.5 million. The broadcast garnered 16 million video views across Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The year's average audience figure marks a 12% increase from last year's telecast. ABC executives were bracing for unusual numbers because Sunday marked the start of daylight saving time, and it was possible viewership could have been affected by the hour time change. Ratings for the Oscars have been critically lower in recent years, hitting a record low in 2021 of 10.5 million viewers and a 2.2 rating among the key adults 18 to 49 demographic. The ratings issued by ABC on Monday are preliminary, with final data due to be published Tuesday. As my usual habit, I would like to end this day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. From EBC Vietnam Bureau, I'm Aliana Sebastian reminding you to stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times.